This says, there it goes. One cannot not communicate. Whatever you do, whether you speak or remain silent, confront or avoid, act emotional or keep a poker face, you provide information to others about your thoughts and feelings. One cannot not communicate. That's probably the most fundamental underlying principle of the study of communication. I'm going to talk about 11 different principles of communication this morning. That's the most fundamental one. That's the most basic thing. What do we mean by one cannot not communicate? Can I just decide I don't want to communicate today?
No, because we need to listen, otherwise that is not communication.
Okay. So, got to be that some kind of communication there. What if I came to class tomorrow morning and I just pulled this chair over in front of the table, sat down in the chair, folded my arms, and didn't say a word for the whole 2.5 hours of class?
You communicate that you don't want to. You're grumpy.
I'm grumpy. It's not the first time I've heard that. Okay. If I did that, I probably couldn't get away with it for the whole 2.5 hours. After a little while, y'all would get up and leave, probably. But if I did, say I did it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes in class. You know, there's been some studies done on how students interact with each other in classes, especially when they get to know each other a little bit better. And what they find is that the students will come in and sit down in class and start having their little conversations with each other. And the professor, if they just come in and stand at the front of the room and don't say a word, after about 3 or 4 minutes, the students will get quiet, turn around and look at the professor. They say, okay, time for class to begin, more or less. Okay. What if at that point, I didn't say a word? And I just stared at you. And then after about 5 minutes or so of silence, I said, okay, everybody get out a piece of paper now and write down what message you think I was sending. Some of you might write that you thought I was grumpy, or that I didn't want to teach today, or that I've lost my damn mind, or whatever it might be. If there's 25 students in class, I might get 25 different answers, but everybody would be able to give me an answer, right? You would all have some opinion about why I didn't say anything. So that's communication, isn't it? When you take meaning from my behavior, I'm communicating with you. Let me give you another example. I know this probably never happened to any of you, but have you ever known anybody that this happened to, where they went out on a date or two with someone, and the person said to them, you know what, I'll give you a call later. And a day or two goes by, and a week or two. After a while, the phone doesn't ring, I'll know it's you. So what does that mean after a while? If they don't call you, they say, don't call me, I'll call you, and then they don't. What does that mean? Okay. So by not communicating with you, are they sending you a very strong message? Okay. Yeah, so they're not communicating, are they? They're communicating, definitely. Even if I'm stranded on a deserted island out in the middle of the ocean all by myself, am I going to communicate? Okay. I'm going to communicate with myself, at least, right? We call that intrapersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is communication between two people. Small group communication is like 3 to 12, and then we would say public speaking is 12 and above. Okay, so intrapersonal communication is communicating with myself. How many of you saw the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks? Who does he communicate with? Mr. Wilson. Why does he do that? Why does he talk to a volleyball? Because he's going crazy, or to keep him from going crazy? Or a little of both, maybe. A little of both, maybe, right? Because most of you probably at some point in your careers as a student have run into, and if you haven't, you will, what's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We'll talk about it a little bit more later on. We'll get later chapters on persuasion and how we can appeal to our audience's needs to persuade them. But one of the things Maslow talks about is that it's like a pyramid or a hierarchy. Things build on top of each other. And your most basic needs are physiological needs, right? You've got certain things. You have to have food, water, air, things like that. You've got to meet those needs. But building on that, our next level of needs are social needs. Human beings are social creatures. We have to communicate. It's part of who we are. Right? So if you're cut off from all forms of communication, you won't survive.